Hello, TH here. So I'm going to do a really quick overview of what it takes to start doing your own car maintenance. I always encourage people to learn how to do this because you can save a massive amount of money and you have the option of getting yourself a car that you might not otherwise be able to afford. So I'm going to go over a whole bunch of stuff that you need to get going and things that you need to learn to get going. So before I start everything off, the most important thing that you need to know about working on a car is safety. Things in a car are hot, acidic, sharp, and they just generally want to hurt you. Ouch! Ouch! And you are going to be under them and you're going to have your arm, you're going to be elbow deep in your car, and you want to make sure that you have the proper protection. So gloves, long sleeves, eye protection if you're crawling under the car. The second most important part about safety is that you're almost guaranteed at some point going to be jacking up your car. You need to learn how to do this. I'm not going to show you how to do this because I'm not going to be liable for you dropping a car on your face. So you have to learn how to jack up a car properly, find someone that knows what they're doing, get them to teach you how to do it. There's a very specific way for every car to jack it up. You need jack stands, and I suggest a low profile jack. Spend the money and get a good jack. It just makes everything easier. It goes up quicker. Now what I'm standing in front of here is basically a simple set of tools that will get you going doing your own car maintenance. So things that I recommend that I can't live without are a proper socket set with extensions, because you're going to need these no matter what you do. You can just buy these extra. These allow you to go way deep into the car and ratchet things that you're not going to be able to reach otherwise. Now, I got this socket set here. Don't do something ridiculous like buy this stuff full price because it goes on sale all the time. This set here at regular price is $230. I got it for $60. Okay, so pay attention to the sales at your auto parts store. Now, I got a full set of wrenches here. I've got two. I got one of each size because chances are you're going to have a bolt that's in a small area and you're going to want to be able to counter hold it. You're not going to be able to get a socket in there. So you put one in here and you put one in there, and it makes it a lot easier. I got these things here. These are a gear wrench. These are worth their weight in gold. They ratchet. This makes everything so much easier. You can ratchet a small bolt in a small area. A hammer, Clarkson would approve. If you're working on a European car, you're going to have to get, there's a regular socket set, doesn't often come with this, a set of Torx bolts like that, and a breaker bar, almost for sure. Because unless you have an impact gun, which is kind of a luxury, a breaker bar is going to make everything a lot easier. Undoing wheel bolts, undoing stuck nuts and lugs underneath the car. This is a ratcheting breaker bar, which makes everything a lot easier. Next thing you're going to need is a torque wrench. Any single time you take something off a car, a bolt or any kind, you have to retorque it to spec. If you don't know what torque specs are, look it up. They're measured in pound-feet or Newton meters. This one goes all the way to 250 pound-feet. That's about all you would ever need. There are smaller versions of this, but this one is nice and strong and it's easy to torque bolts with. Other things that you're definitely going to need, PB blaster. Okay, so this is a penetrating oil. This is one of the things you cannot live without, especially if you're working on an old BMW. Watch my differential swap if you want to see what happens when you get a stuck bolt. This makes a huge difference. Okay, this is a Haynes manual for a Saab 9.3. The reason I have it for a Saab is because I have an old Saab that I work on quite frequently, and the online support isn't quite as good for Saabs as it is for BMWs. Now for me, BMWs is a huge community and I use the internet for pretty much everything that I do. If I'm stuck, it's got everything you need. An oil drain pan, that makes everything a lot easier. When you're changing your oil, changing fluids, you kind of have to have one of those. All right, so that's like a basic kit to get you going. 100% guaranteed the first time you do a job, you're going to have to run out to the nearest store and buy something that you need. So you start stacking up your tools slowly. Budget some money for that. The way I see it is nowadays there's no excuse to not do your own car maintenance because the internet is such a valuable tool once you figure out how to use it. I hope you've done that by now. Now, everything you could ever need to know about your car is probably on the internet, unless you have some weird obscure car that not very many people drive. Even then, there's going to be a community for it somewhere and people who are willing to help you. So the first thing that I would do though is if you're just fully getting started out on your own car maintenance, you're probably not going to know what the parts of the car are called. This was the biggest obstacle for me, is when something started making noises, you have to figure out what to search so that you can find what other people have done to fix it. So get a diagram of your car, find find a part breakdown, find something like that so that you can understand what all the different parts of your car are called. It makes a huge difference when you're trying to figure out what's broken. Almost guaranteed, whatever car it is that you drive, there's going to be an online forum for it. Join it now. Introduce yourself, be nice, be respectful, because there's lots of people out there that know a lot about the car that you drive, and they would be happy to help you as long as you know that they know that you can do your own research first. There's a search function. I've gone over this in another video. There's a search function on every forum. Learn how to use it. Learn to search up before you just walk onto the front of the forum and say, why won't my car start? There's probably a whole thread on why your car won't start and all the possible causes. So learn to use the function to research everything before you actually start asking real questions for real people. But if you are truly stuck, there's always someone in every community that I've been in anyway that's willing to help you figure it out. Another really handy thing that you should get is an OBDII diagnostic scan tool. Now you can get one of those ones that plugs right in to the OBDII port and has its own little screen, but honestly the easier way is to just go to Amazon and get an OBDII reader for your phone. I've done a couple reviews on some of those apps. You can check them out here. That's a really good way to be able to read the codes in your car, so when you get a check engine light, you don't have to pay somebody 50 bucks to tell you what the code is. You can just figure it out yourself. All you have to do is buy it once, and then you don't ever have to go again to get your codes read, unless it's a really obscure code which some of these readers can't read. But you can do a lot of understanding what's going on in your engine using these readers, and the more you learn, the better you are able to diagnose problems. One thing that I really recommend that you get is some patience. Working on an old car, especially an old European car, is an incredibly arduous thing to do. Things are rusted, they're old, they won't come undone. It's hard. It's physically hard to do. My arms are currently sore from yesterday when I did my differential. My body was stiff all night. It's not an easy thing working on a car and wrenching on a car. It's something that you have to have a lot of patience to do. I can't count the number of times that someone has walked into the garage after I've been working on the car and they found me sitting there with my head in my hands, but not crying. I definitely don't cry. So when you are working on your car, I recommend you take breaks frequently. Make sure you're drinking a lot of water if it's hot out, because you're going to get frustrated really quickly, and it's not worth it. Because if somebody out there can reach it and do that and undo that bolt, you can too. It just takes time and focus and patience to be able to just go, okay, I can do this. I know it's hard. Maybe get someone else to try. Often I have walked away, gone and done something else, had a rethink, and come back and the bolt came undone. Right? It's just a matter of being patient with yourself, because it's not easy sometimes, but it is worth it in the end. It's rewarding, and you save a lot of money. I've easily saved thousands of dollars in car labor just doing my own maintenance on my car. And if you have an older car like a BMW, you're going to be doing a lot of maintenance. So it's worth learning how to do it yourself. It's worth it. It really is. If you're just getting into car maintenance and you just bought yourself your first set of tools, I don't think that you should start by dropping the transmission and doing a clutch. I think you should probably start small. Do things like oil changes, change the air filter in your car, simple stuff that you don't need to pay anybody to do. Change a windshield wiper, something like that, right? And then slowly work your way up into the more complicated things. Start doing things like brake pads before you would consider doing anything that requires a brake bleed, right? I would do basic stuff before you considered starting to weld. I still don't weld. I don't have a welder. I just let somebody else do that type of thing for me. Anything that's dangerous, dealing with gasoline or dealing with like spring compression, leave that to somebody else until you're really confident and you really know what you're doing. You don't want to make a mistake that could hurt you, obviously, right? So I think start small, do some simple things. I'm going to do a DIY soon on how to change the oil in an E46 BMW. If you're just getting into it, that's a great place to start. A little bit scary at first because you're like, oh, what happens what if I can't get the oil in? It's really not that big of a deal. You start to relax the more that you do more maintenance, and it's worth it in the end. Leave yourself enough time to do the repairs, because something always goes wrong. I don't think I've ever actually done a big job where I didn't have to leave what I was doing in someone else's car and go buy a part from an auto parts store halfway through. If you think you're going to change all 4 brake calipers at 9 p.m. the night before a big job interview, you might need to reevaluate your decision-making paradigm. If you leave yourself enough time, like leave yourself a full day or a weekend for something you've never done before, you should be fine. And always come up with a backup for getting to work on Monday if you are going to tackle a big job and you've never done it before. You really don't want to get stuck without your car, and it's worse if you get your car into a position where it can't be towed to a shop to have somebody fix it for you. I've done that. Don't do that. So that's just a really quick overview of what it takes to get in doing your own car maintenance. There is a little bit of upfront cost, obviously, buying your first set of tools, but you can slowly build your toolkit over time. If you don't have a space to work on your car, it makes it very difficult, and I understand that, and a lot of people are in that position. Maybe find a friend that you'd be willing to learn with, and you guys can split the cost of tools, and he might have a garage or something you could work in. But it is very rewarding to work on your own car. Yes, you're going to bash your knuckles. Yes, you're going to burn yourself. Yes, it hurts, but it's worth it. I would personally, with my job, never be able to afford an old BMW if I didn't do my own maintenance. I would have, by now, easily put half of the total cost of the vehicle into paying someone to fix it. That's how much maintenance I've done on it, right? So that's the thing you have to consider. If you learn how to do this, it pays off, easily pays off. The cost of the tools, everything is paid off, because you're going to be able to own a car that you would never otherwise be able to afford. And that's very valuable, especially if you're a car enthusiast. So stay tuned for more reviews and DIYs. I've got a review of, hopefully, an F80 M3 coming up that I hope you tune into. Check out my channel for other reviews, especially on the OBDII scan tool apps. There's lots of good stuff on there. Until then, talk to you next time.